Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hawk Wins Radio Picture Show here at the beautiful Q4 Radio. My name is Jack Dwyer.
And I'm Jay Smooth.
It's a pleasure to have you guys on board tonight. We're going to have a great show for you. For those of you just tuning in for the first time, raise your hands. You're a first timer? You're a first timer? Well, welcome. We're so glad to have you. If you like the show, hit subscribe down below. Also, if you like the show, check out some of the other shows that we have. We got a ton of different artists of all different mediums, including filmmakers, musicians, independent artists, graffiti artists. We've got a little bit of everyone in here. So if you're interested in any of that, please check out more of our shows. And again, thank you for coming along on board.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. We do have some exciting news. Jay Smooth, you want to take it away for the live show that we got coming up in Reggie's Rock House?
Oh, shit, dude. Yeah. April 18th at Reggie's Rock House with bands East Moon, Luzma, Maze Garden, and what's the other one?
Crime in Antarctica.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show, man. It's going to be our 1-year anniversary show.
1-year anniversary.
I didn't even think we were going to make it a year, bro.
Bro, look at us thriving. It's been a journey, man, and I think what's so cool about these live shows that we're going to start cranking out is that we're getting back to you guys. We're getting back to the live events. You know, when we started Hawk Wins, it was post-pandemic, and it was a time when people couldn't gather all the time. And it's going to be great to get you guys in the same room together and rock out and have some fun. We're going to have a lot of laughs coming up in the future, a lot of rocking and rolling.
A lot of rocking and rolling.
So we're happy to have you guys on board. And yeah, we'll be sharing a lot of that information coming up very soon, especially the website, so you can get your tickets. We'll be posting flyers around. And yeah, if you're interested in coming to the show, please come. Invite a friend, invite your girlfriend, invite your wife, but don't invite them together. And, you know, a little thing goes a long way is just hit the share button. If you see our poster online, just hit the share button. It takes a second. It means the world to us.
We'll have like free goodies and stuff for everyone.
Free goodies. I promised a blow-up doll, too. Maybe some photo ops. It'll be cool. Lots of rocking, lots of rolling.
I've always wanted to take a picture with a blow-up doll before.
Yeah? Well, hopefully it doesn't go viral, but we can make it happen. Dreams do come true here at Hawk Wins. Well, we're happy to have you guys on board today. And our guest today is an artist of a really great medium, something that means a lot to me and Jay, of telling stories and being a good storyteller, ethically, morally, intelligently, and how to do it. She is a wonderful friend of ours. We met her maybe about a little while ago, but we're so glad to have her on board. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Jennie McMurtry. McMurtry, my apologies. Fuck, I fucked it up.
It's okay. I threw you for a loop. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Jennie McMurtry. Good to have you on board.
Thank you. I'm so excited. You know, we got the 3 J's in the room.
Ooh, I didn't realize that.
I feel like Jay is always a very, creative name. Most of the creatives I know, their names start with J.
I think, yeah. It's a good observation. I think you're at on this end, too. Totally. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh. Well, it's glad to have you on board, Jay. I was going to talk Jay Smooth.
No, I'm really throwing you off.
Yeah, lots of J's. Well, Jennie, again, thanks for coming on board. For those of who are out there listening, tell them, who are you in a couple words, generally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a screenwriter and a story editor, and I help other screenwriters get to the heart of their story and tell stories, like big stories, and break them down into small chunks to make it doable.
Now, it's such a hard thing these days, you know, with AI especially thriving right now. You know, one of my big questions that I had for you, you know, when I first started getting into writing, I was taught by people who did it by typewriter, by candlelight, and chain smoking cigarettes and whiskey. And the whole writing thing has changed so much. And I'm not going to lie, I got a little discouraged from it. You know, it was a passion of mine I love to do. But then I saw, you know, like what ChatGPT was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never get to that level. What would you suggest to someone who's getting a little timid about it? Or do you lean in with the times, or do you stay rogue and make your story heard?
That's a really great question. You know, you can still write by candlelight and a typewriter. Like, if that's at your heart, like, that is always available to you. But in terms of AI, I saw something really interesting the other day, and that is that one thing that will make something always inherently human are typos. So if you see a typo in something, you can almost be certain that this came from a human. ChatGPT and all these other AI technologies, they strive for something that's perfection. And it's honestly really easy to suss it out, whether it's a small paragraph or a larger story. And one of the things that's always stuck with me from my time at improv is that the most beautiful things come from our mistakes, right? Happy accidents lead to the best stories. And if you have something that can't make mistakes, it can't lead to the best stories. It can tell you a whole story, it can structure it, it can give you feedback, typos, grammar, that kind of thing, but it's not human, and it's not going to be able to tap into the creativity like humans will. I also really strongly believe that AI can only recreate, it can't ever actually create. So it can't create new ideas and new scenarios. It can take things it already knows and piece them together in ingenious ways, but it can never create something that doesn't already exist. So I have to hope that as an industry, as far as screenwriting, that people are in our corners saying, hey, the first draft needs to be written by a human. Like that was one of the things the WGA fought for. And that hopefully AI will never take human jobs as far as like creativity, that kind of thing. But at the same time, it feels almost like a phase, kind of like reality TV came from the strikes. Now we have AI creation coming, and I don't think it'll last. You've seen pushback already, I'm sure, on some of the commercials that have been created purely from AI and the way that people have reacted. People don't want that. They want to see the train wreck, but they don't want those stories.
Well, fuck the robot. Let's get to the real brass tacks of you as a writer. You know, I was joking earlier about candlelight and typewriters, which is a vibe. You're a writer. When you're about to write your next great work, what do? Do you light candles? What's your ritual behind getting ready, your mind space ready to write?
I am a morning writer, so I like to start like 8 or 9 in the morning typically, and then go hard for about 3 hours. That's my usual habit. And I have heard that like lighting a candle, starting some kind of ritual is the best way to get into it. For me personally, I journal in the morning, I do a cup of coffee, and then I go straight to my computer before I get a lot of influence from everything else in the world, the day-to-day going on. And recently, I've been really into Avicii while I'm writing. I think songs take such a precedence when you're creating a story and you're creating a world. So I like to listen to music that kind of reflects the world that I'm creating. Maybe it'll be sort of the soundtrack. But recently it's been Avicii because I saw his documentary and inspirational, sad, heartbreaking, but very, very inspirational.
It's like it sets a tone and a vibe. It's like having the cool chill beats on Spotify or whatever it may be. Just get your mind right. I'm with you on that. What are some works that you're working on right now?
Yeah, let's see, what did I just finish? I just finished a fun like New Year's Day short film. It was for a contest that I'm still waiting to hear back on, but it's a little bit of real life mixed in with a little bit of fantasy. It's more humor based because a lot of my stuff is drama. But essentially the main character, her goal for the night is to get a New Year's kiss, and she's dating somebody. So you think, oh, that's pretty easy. She's never had a New Year's kiss at a big party like that, but her partner doesn't like PDA. So that's where the conflict kind of comes in, the humor of it. So that's been a lot of fun. And then also have written a few scripts that are in production right now as well, which we can definitely dive into those later. But I'm also working on a hour-long drama that is Handmaid's Tale meets You from Netflix. So it's kind of the idea of a cult mentality and recruiting people into a cult. What does that actually look like? Because a lot of people think that those who go into a cult are deplorable people, they're down on their luck, they're depressed. But quite honestly, usually people who go into cults are very optimistic. They want to change the world. They're go-getters, they're activists, because that labor and that drive is actually going to help grow the cult in the end, right? So this hour-long drama, Hive Mind, really dives into the mindset of that from the cult leader as he's recruiting people.
Interesting. Now, what kind of research do you do when you get into writing? I don't suggest you join a cult, but how far do you push that to learn about your topic?
Yeah, well, they say write what you know. So I did accidentally join a cult out of high school. So it was a
Tony
Christian.
2012.
So there's a little bit of truth in that, but it was a Christian cult at a college, and so if you want to dive into like a larger organization, I won't name any maybe on this. We don't need to get red flagged, but there are a lot of autobiographies. So I do like to read a lot, especially there's one called A Billion Years, which is a really insightful view into somebody who was basically not born into a cult, but like 15, his parents joined, and then he signed a life contract for 1 billion years, really moved up in the ranks, and it's his story. So I think that's important. Plus, there's a lot of documentaries. So I like to watch documentaries. One of my favorite ones, which really helped create the character of the story, is How to Be a Cult Leader on Netflix. Have you seen it?
I have.
Yes.
It's interesting.
It's a good one. And it breaks down a lot of the larger cults and the people who led it. But it was cool because it kind of broke down to like, okay, step 1, find your cause. Step 2, find your followers. Step 3, and I followed those steps in building my character, like kind of being like, what kind of cult would he lead? What would they believe? Who would follow him? And then like, what is the problem? Like, why would the government come after him? So I like to follow those kinds of things as well.
And it's really cool because that's real life. You know what I mean? That's people get sucked into that stuff all the time, and then they're drinking the Kool-Aid before they know it. And I guess that's kind of what's fun about the horror genre or in drama and comedy, and I guess all of them, is when it's so grounded like that of real life moments happening, and this can happen to you. So what other kind of genres do you like writing? I know you said mostly drama based, but do you do comedy and?
Yeah, I'm still an emerging screenwriter, so I have a few productions out, but I'm still trying to figure out what it is I like. And I think that you need to try and experiment with different things. Even you can tell the same story, but put a different genre on it. Maybe you really like writing Westerns. Maybe Hallmark movies are your calling, but you just don't know it until you try. So I have mostly drama shorts with strong female characters. That's what I've worked on in the past. But I'm really excited this year to do more features, more television pilots. Like I said, this first half of the year, I really want to dive more into comedy, just because like sometimes getting into the headspace of the drama and those characters can be like really overwhelming. And it's something that I talk to my groups about a lot, is like when you're living in the mindset of a character for such a long time, how do you get out? So I really want to live in comedy for a minute. Even in that, there's a lot of pain, but it's with that humor on top of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's an easier journey to travel along too. I know when we were talking at Jerry's party, we were talking about what kind of genre you write, and saying fuck the robot, I don't need AI. Unless it's Alexa, I love you, baby. I guess what I'm trying to say is the journey of the writer is just as important as the story too. Like you're saying, you dive into some research, you put yourself in these characters. And comedy, and doing so, is obviously going to make you happier, right? Is that fair to say?
I feel like that's a fair assumption, but also if we look at our biggest comedians, a lot of them suffer from depression, right? Because comedy is also rooted in trauma.
Sure.
But it's so much more fun to laugh at your trauma than cry about it. So yes, yeah, like I think that you can walk away feeling very seen, very validated if you see a show that kind of is like making fun of something. Even I've recently gotten to Shameless, right? A lot of heavy topics in Shameless. Like we cover everything. I'm already on season 6, and I'm sure there's still like such a wild ride to go. But you compare that to like Grey's Anatomy, that covers very similar topics at times, and the feeling you walk away with is so different. Whereas with Shameless, we can kind of laugh and be like, I see a little bit of myself in that, or feel inspired to take on the world no matter what it throws at us. And I think that there's something really special with that in comedy.
Is there a genre you don't like to write on? I know some people probably want to stay away from horror. Is there anything you steer clear from?
There's nothing that I haven't explicitly been like, I don't want to write that. I think that Hallmark movies can get a bad rep, right? Like, but that's where Shonda Rhimes got her break. That's how she started. I just watched Hot Frosty, which is a Hallmark type show that knows what it is.
Hot Frosty was pretty great.
It's good, right?
It was all right.
So I don't think that
That's
there's
exactly what you would expect. Exactly what you would expect.
It is, and it knows what it is, so
Right.
it can make fun of itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Transparently, I don't think I would write a script that is all dudes. I did write one a while ago, but it was also based off a dream, and they just happened to be men. But that is probably my biggest weakness, is writing male characters, which is crazy. I know. I'm like the opposite of Disney. Like, I will just kill off all the dads. But no, there's not a topic, not a genre that I wouldn't want to try. Maybe like Westerns would be the least likely I would do.
You know, earlier we were talking about how all the major movies that have been released this year, was it over 50% of them have been female protagonists. And obviously you're dressed in your Wicked garb right now, and you look fabulous. You look really great. I was hoping maybe you can talk about the importance of having strong female leads in film and media in general today.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we were just talking about that. I think it's the top 100 grossing movies, like 54% of them were female protagonists, which is huge. I just saw that statistic today. I think it's new information. It's so funny when I think about this. I think about when I first came to Chicago and I was meeting other people and talking about my stories, and somebody I was talking to who's a producer. Well, I don't know if he's ever produced anything, but he asked me what I like to write, and I said, I like to write strong female characters, and he immediately told me, oh, well, that's not enough. That's an oversaturated market. And I was like new in my journey, right? So I was like, oh, is it? And I started questioning. I don't know why, because it's absolutely not oversaturated. If anything, our female protagonists are about to explode in a really fun way. Even before this year, maybe like the last decade, as female protagonists were growing and we start to see them, there's kind of been an interesting shift. A lot of those female protagonists were not flawed, right? They were pretty perfect. And the world had to change to recognize how great they were, right? But like, perfect characters are extremely boring, and it's not something that we want to tune into week over week. So if we're seeing like people like, it wasn't a good movie, she wasn't a good actress, like the character was this or that, it's because we don't write them the same way we've been writing male characters, with these flaws and these wants and needs outside of like family units or whatever that might look like. So now we have things like Handmaid's Tales, Good Girls, Killing Eve, where these female protagonists are quite evil, and it's a fun new like explosion, I think, that's happening, and one of the things that will help connect more people to the protagonist and the character. And I'm really excited to see what becomes of that. Like, even Barbie, right, that came out, like, she had to have flaws, and one of the flaws was like, the world was like, we don't really like you, we don't really like what you represent, which is hard to hear. Like, imagine somebody coming up and telling you like, I don't like what you represent, and it's like hard to hear, but she had to adjust and recognize and see that and become a new person by the end of it. So I'm excited to see more of that in the future.
That's great. You know, like I was saying, it grounds it. You know, you have people are flawed, and that's what makes it so interesting. And it's about time. It's about fucking time that that statistic is a real number. You know, it's about time.
Yeah.
I was hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about your groups that you lead for writers in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a few writers groups, but primarily right now I'm working on promoting Chicago film events, which is exactly what it sounds like. So it's all the events happening in the indie world or like locally that help promote filmmaking for writers and for other filmmakers, anybody working on set, anybody trying to make that happen or just observe more. There's people who don't want to make films, but they want to know when there's a festival going on so these things can be supported. It's something that I definitely saw when I first came here, was there are a lot of extremely good communities, but if you're not directly plugged into a specific community, you might not find out about the events or what's going on with them. And so I wanted to work on kind of centralizing that. And at first it was just a bunch of different group chats that I was involved with various people who, that they might hang out, and I'm part of that group. And finally I got tired of being like, anytime there was an event that happened, I had to send it out to 8 people. So I started a broadcast channel on Instagram, which is just Chicago Film Events, and that has blown up. I was really excited. Yesterday we hit 312 members, 312. So 312, it's very Chicago of us, it feels like. And have been working to promote that. And within that group, there are some writing groups that I run, including like the Script Slay Studio, which was born from a weekend that I had free. I never have weekends free. Like, do you guys ever have weekends free? Probably no, right?
Absolutely not.
But I woke up one Saturday and I realized I don't have anything like planned this weekend. And then I wished I could go on a writer's retreat or do something. So I kind of just did like my own at-home writing retreat, set up like the Pomodoro method where you write for a little bit, you take a break, and that was so successful that I turned it into a guide that other people can do that as well. And you can kind of tailor it to your own needs. So if you're writing a script or if you're editing a script, it's kind of broken down into those 2 ideas. And you can just write for one weekend, so Saturday, Sunday, and it's like kind of like 9 to 5, a little bit longer than that, but it's not overwhelming. And it's been really exciting. One of the people who took it, he wrote 50 pages in a weekend.
Oh.
It's insane. It's insane. Like, my biggest hope was someone could write 15. And so to take that and more than triple it is absolutely phenomenal. And it's actually something I'll be doing later tonight. We meet online just to have kind of a steady writer's room. And then also Script Night, which is through the Chicago Film Club, is another like passion project of mine. And I co-moderate it with Bish and John. And it's part of the Chicago Film Club, but it's hosted at IFA, which is another phenomenal resource. And what it is a peer review space. So when you first come out with a draft, it can be really intimidating to reach out to somebody and ask for feedback, or you might not have the connections. And so we wanted to create a space where people could submit part of their script and get both written and verbal feedback. So everybody pre-reads it, you write your written feedback into a Google Doc, and then we meet in person and you do a roundtable of the verbal feedback before you get the written. And that's so important because, one, it teaches you how to give good feedback. Like, even if you're not getting your script read, you're giving feedback. And that helps you become a better writer because people will either agree with what you're saying and you're like, yeah, we're on the same page with that. They might think the exact opposite. Or they might come up with something that you've never thought of. And it really helps you as a writer understand the different perspectives that can go into a scene, into a character, into structure, whatever that looks like. And while simultaneously building a writing community, which can be challenging because, frankly, writers don't love a schedule. They don't love to meet all the time. So it can be kind of challenging to build that unless you're working at it really hard.
And is that an open invite for people? Like, how would somebody get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So both of these things are put into the Chicago Film Events broadcast channel, or you can just go to chicagofilmevents.com. And there's a Google Calendar there with everything coming up. So some of them, they cost, some of them they don't, but all that information is there. And if that's ever like an issue, like let me know and I'll see what I can do. But if you're an IFA member, it's free. And if you're not, it's $10 to go to Script Night.
Now, what's something you would like to see in the Chicago independent film scene? If money weren't an option, or if there was a new wave to come along, what would you like to see in the up and coming filmmakers here?
This will come as no surprise. I want writers' rooms here. That is a huge thing. And actually, I got to see Virgil Williams last week do a master's class on writing for film and television. And I talked to him about this. I was like, how can we bring more writers' rooms here? And he goes, you have to write a hit and then tell them that you want the writers' rooms here, right? So it really is up to us. It's such an interesting concept that people will leave Chicago, go to California to write shows about living in Chicago, right? So a lot of these shows are filmed here, but not written here. So that would be the best ideal case. I used to think before I moved to Chicago, I thought I would always go to California, but the longer I'm here, the less I want to leave. And so now I'm like, okay, can we bring things here so I can just write for television here? You can always write for features pretty much anywhere, but if you want to write for TV, you have to be on the coasts right now.
Why do you think that is? Like, why can't we make like Chicago a destination place where like screenwriters want to come and make it?
It's really about the money. It's that when it comes down to it, it's about the money. A lot of things are established in California. So if you're going to write for television, you usually go to California. If you're going to write for late night, you're going to go to New York, right? That's just been the standard for so long. Even with the pandemic and everybody leaving and writers' rooms kind of going online, there's still an expectation that you're going to meet the people who are going to hire you in California. So if we want to bring it here, it is all about the money. It's about having those resources, because it's not that we don't have talent. We have Second City. We have DePaul. We have all Loyola. We have all these schools teaching us how to do it. It's just a matter of getting the people here and the money.
Well, you're definitely doing a good job at bridging that gap.
Thank you.
That's a really noble thing. And I think it's important for people too, because you can say you're a writer, put on the writer hat, and if you don't get any feedback on it or anyone else enjoying your writing, then it's just kind of lost in the pages. What were some times that you think you maybe benefited, especially from a writer's room or getting feedback from somebody, whether positive or negative?
Yes. Getting notes is always such a struggle. I will preach all day long that you need to get feedback, you need to get notes. I will give notes, I do script coverage, but even to this day, when I get them, I kind of have a wall for the first 24 hours until your ego kind of goes away. So I will preface it with that. But maybe one of the most important moments of my life that I got feedback that really changed everything for me was my first pilot that I wrote, Genius High. It's a little like Netflix style comedy, right? And I was still working my corporate job at that time, and I submitted it to Nickelodeon for their competition. I did not get in, but then I submitted it to like festivals and on Coverfly, and I got like a quarterfinalist placement. And that just blew my mind, because I thought, wow, here is somebody like validating my work. It's not a winner, but it's not terrible, right? And this was the first like thing I had ever really done. So that was really important, just to know that you're kind of moving in the right direction, that what you're doing is hitting with somebody, and it's not going to hit with everybody, but if you're finding like one or two people that really enjoy what you're doing, that's so helpful. I can also go into like specifics about, this character arc wasn't working and somebody told me the secret like golden egg thing that I just couldn't see, because that happens quite often when you're like brainstorming and springboarding off people. But it's less about the specifics of the problem of your story or the structure of your story, and more about other people believing in the work that you're doing that's going to help you grow and keep moving forward.
Not to jump around too much, but I did want to get back to the money, honey.
Yes.
Because you were saying that's maybe one of the biggest gaps. How would somebody acquire money to make their project a reality? There's so many people writing, and I have myself, I've written so many things, and I'm like, I haven't gotten paid for any of these. What do you think is maybe the best way to get that money, honey?
Yes. Oh my gosh, the $1 million question, quite literally. You have avenues, right? So depending on the scope, I would say before you even look at trying to get money for your project, think about it at the script level. If it's something you are trying to produce yourself on your own like budget, your own dime, what can you do with the script to make that extremely producible? Reduce the number of locations, reduce the number of extras, remove all the montages, remove all of these like things that don't actually drive the story forward, but will require makeup crew, a new location, extra production days. Like that's the first step, right? The second step is like, once you have that locked, finding people who are equally passionate about your project, because it can never be like a one person thing. And if you get yourself a line producer, even better, because they're really going to break it down for you, literally line by line. It's in the title, telling you how much this line is going to cost you at the end of the day. You kind of get that budget going. Once you have a solid budget, you can move to the fundraising stage, which is I'm currently in for Abby Needs a Friend. And when you're in the fundraising stage, you have a few different avenues, but the biggest hurdle won't be putting on the event. It won't be putting up the Seed and Spark or the GoFundMe. It's going to be overcoming your mindset about money and the uncomfortable feeling of asking somebody for money, right? The reason we don't get paid for a lot of these things is because we don't feel comfortable asking for money. I actually had to change my screensaver because I do a lot of free work. And I was like, I literally can't keep doing this free work. I will go broke. I won't be able to pay rent. I won't be able to do this because I spend so much time. So know that you are worth being paid and that people want to help you. People get really excited if they're not filmmakers themselves, but they see a story that they want to see come to life. Like, they get excited about that. Let them help you. When you ask for it, like, take that money with gratitude and know that they're helping you, but like you're helping them. It's collaborative, right? You're not stealing, you're not tricking, you're not scamming. So that's going to be the first thing, is overcoming your money mindset, which I'm still working on. Like, I can talk about it all the time, but I'm still working on it, right? And then you got to figure out your avenues. So you can do contests, which sometimes have some kind of financial backing on them, or grants can be really good. And then just ultimately fundraising and figure out, are you going to find private investors, which be careful of the word investor because it's usually donations. It's going to be a better route for you to take as opposed to investing, because that's a whole other ball game. People aren't really going to see a return on their investment unless you're doing a feature and you maybe have some like B-list, A-list talent coming in. But you can do the investment route, really dig into like what you can offer that people want to buy, right? So take Abby Needs a Friend, for example, which we are currently in the fundraising stage for. It is a script about a woman who is looking for friendship and she's looking to belong. So she joins an MLM, which is multi-level marketing, think Amway, Tupperware, Mary Kay, that kind of thing. And she joins this and it turns out that it's really like a deadly cult. Surprise. I write a lot about cults. And so when I talk about the MLM experience, almost every single person has some story. Like, I'm curious if either of you have ever been part of an MLM or been invited to a group by chance. I don't know.
Yeah, Amway. I got sucked into Amway once. He's like, "You'll never trip over $100 bills. It'll be great." And it's like, you're a crock of shit.
Yes.
It's terrible.
You bring a friend. You bring a friend. Isn't that a triangle?
And then bring more friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you've had that experience, like almost everybody has. And so when people are like, yeah, we're going to expose these for what they really are, people get excited about that. So we had a couple of fundraising events, including like a silent auction, and we had a great group of comedians come out and support us, and we tried to throw an event that people would want to come and entertain. The director, Emerson Cole, and his sound partner, they ran a sound workshop. All of the proceeds are going to that. And then we're also selling t-shirts, and the t-shirts it's like a little pyramid, and it says, "Ditch the pyramid scheme. You're not a pharaoh." So you just find that thing that connects your story to the people and people who are excited about it, get creative with it. And you can find the money. I'm always just amazed at people when they hit their fundraising goal for their projects. I'm like, you raised like 10 grand. That's amazing. Or 20 grand, like whatever it is. It is definitely possible. It's a hustle. You got to work at it. It's not just going to show up overnight, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is a good budget for an independent film? Maybe it's a short feature, 10 to 15 pages. How much do you think something like that would cost?
Such a wide question.
Sure.
I want to be careful. Like, if you're calling in favors because you've put in work on other people's sets, right? it's going to be a lower budget. And I think you guys had you had some people on before. I think you can do something for about $3,000 if you're really creative. If it's like one location, maybe you're getting the gear for free from a friend. But 10K is a usual general like rule. Really, you want to like even budget for 20,000, because what people forget is beyond just the principal filming, you still need post-production. If you're going to do a festival run, don't just budget for the fees, which add up very, very quickly. Budget for your hotels, the travel expenses, all of these other things, because like if you get into a festival but you can't get there, you're not going to get like all of the networking advantages. And if you can actually get into these festivals, network, there is a chance that you can get this onto a pretty good platform. I see that happen with indie films here, whether it's Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime or something that's going to get you a little bit more money back. So at least 10, 20, and then honestly, you should try to get more so that you can pay people their day rate. But that's very, very challenging, but it's something we should be striving for.
Sure. You said a word that definitely rung a bell is networking. And, I think that's one of the big things we like to say is you got to show up if you want to be seen. I was hoping maybe you can talk about just the importance of networking, getting out of your home, getting to these festivals. Can you tell us a little bit about the best side of networking for it?
I love that. You want to show up. You got to show up if you want to be seen.
That's right.
That's so good. I hadn't thought about that.
I think I got that from the Avid brothers, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. Yeah, it is that though, right? They always say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. But it's not just about like who you know is going to get me a job. But what is their wealth of knowledge? Like, what do they know that they're going to teach me because they have that lived experience? And I actually talked to some college kids a couple weeks ago about this, because networking can seem extremely intimidating. However, when you go to a networking event, one of the most important things to remember is everybody is there to network. They want to talk to you. Like, you're not being a burden. You're not being weird going up and talking to somebody. You can literally just walk into a circle and say, "Hi, my name is Jennie. What's your name?" And that is not weird. It's not awkward. It's expected. Mm-hmm. And to feel more comfortable with that, it's really good to practice a little elevator pitch. We hear about this a lot. But it's good to practice it, have it memorized, so you're not rambling on and on when somebody goes, "So what do you do?" And then you list your like 15 multi-hyphenates and everything that you can do. And I love a multi-hyphenate, but it's so hard to remember all of those titles, right? All of those things that you can do. And instead, I recommend focusing on like one or two things that you really want to do and tell people that's what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, everyone's like, and I can PA. I can always be a PA. Anybody can always be a PA, right? Sure. If you want to be a career PA, great. Like, that's fine. That's a thing that people do. But being really like mindful of what your intention is when you go into the room is super helpful. So having your elevator pitch, if you're kind of shy or get overwhelmed with talking to people, just have a goal of how many people you want to talk to. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's 4. That's fine. Maybe it's 1. That's fine too. Just like once you did that, you feel a sense of accomplishment, as opposed to saying, I need to talk to every single person in the room, which is very, very overwhelming.
Sure. And it's also the friends you meet along the way too. Mm-hmm. I was hoping maybe you can elaborate on that. Who are some people you want to give a shout out to that you like working with?
Oh gosh, I feel like I'm going to leave somebody out. I think what you just said. So when you go to a networking event, you might see one person once and then you see them over and over and over and over, right? So we met, I think, before, but really got to know each other at Jerry's party. You had Jerry on here a while with Spaghetti Man, so shout out to that. I actually got to work on set with his hamster in my head. So it is really about this networking. Emerson Cole, who's directing, Abby Needs a Friend, Bish, who co-moderates with me. Oh gosh, I really am gonna forget people. Y'all, you have to forgive me. They know how bad I am with names. Kristen McCabe, who is a wonderful actress she's been cast in Abby. So I'm pretty excited for that. And I could literally go, I run a group that is just talking about people. So
you got a lot of friends. You're popular.
Yeah.
You're very popular. Now, are you originally from Chicago?
No,
You're from Nebraska, right?
Yes.
When did you make the big move here to the big city?
I moved here in 2019 from Austin, Texas. And in Austin, I was doing improv. I moved there for stand-up, found out very quickly I hated that, and switched to improv sketch. And prior to that, I've lived all over the world. So including the US, I've lived in 6 different countries.
Wow.
So that's been quite a fun experience. I feel bad for those who had to live during the COVID times in college, because that was the time that I really got to go out and explore. And I do miss the traveling.
What other countries have you lived in?
I've lived in Portugal, China, Turkey, which everyone's always like, what? Turkey? Favorite country. So good. Turkey and Portugal right up there. And it's not really a country, but I lived in Ibiza. I feel like I have to put, that's different than Spain. It is part of Spain. And oh my gosh, I feel like I'm missing one. I said Thailand, right?
You did not.
Thailand, that's the last one.
Damn, that's a lot of places to move to. Yeah. So you just wanted to move and just explore the world and live place to place. How long did you stay at each place?
That's exactly it. So I consider living there if I paid rent. So it was between 3 to 6 months. I think some of them were a little bit longer. Each one had its own purpose. So I went to Portugal for an internship. I have a international business marketing minor, and they required an internship abroad. But I feel like I gamed the system a little bit. I worked at a hostel for like a work for room and board type vibe.
Nice.
And they gave me credit for that. So that was really fun. When I went to Turkey, my friend was getting married, my friend from college, and I really wanted to like meet his wife and get to know her more than just the single day. And so I went there for the summer and got to hang out with them on the weekends. And in Ibiza, I was selling boat party tickets, which sounds so cool, but I was so bad at it. I sold, I think, 2 tickets the entire summer, and I was working 10 hours a day. That was not my calling.
Oh, no. That's got to be hard, especially in a foreign country, too, to be selling tickets. I get it. I worked for the bus companies here in Chicago doing the tours around the city. And, yeah, we had a lot of people working on with their work visas. They'd come in, work for a summer. They spoke English, which was great, but, I can only imagine that's got to be tough when you go to a foreign land and you don't speak the language. What was that like?
Well, luckily, Ibiza is mostly English, which kind of defeated the purpose. I wanted to practice my Spanish, and then I got there and everyone just spoke English. Ironically, the only tickets I sold were in Spanish.
Really? Good for you.
And I think it's because I knew so few words that I couldn't undo the hard work, right? When you say too much, you lose a sale. And I basically knew like sunset boat party, free after parties at the nightclubs. And they were like, oh yeah, okay. And so they bought the tickets.
Sometimes those are the only words you have to know.
Right?
Sunset boat party, I'm there.
Yes.
Short, sweet, to the point. Oh, man. So what are some other topics we haven't touched on yet? Have you ever seen any of your pieces of work and of writing get onto the screen?
Yeah, I have mostly worked, before this I was working in the sketch space. So I've seen a lot of my sketches go on stage. As far as television, I'm actually really excited. Last week, I got to see a rough cut of my first, big girl script, I guess you would call it. So Chris is the director, and it's his story. He came to me with a story, and I wrote it, and we shot this last year, and I got to see the rough cut of it. It's permission. It's a pretty heavy topic story about miscarriage, and it involves women. He goes, I really want a female writer on this, which kudos to him for having that forethought, because I think that is really important. So that will hopefully have friends and family viewing later, like maybe in March, but haven't yet seen it on the big screen, but I have seen my name in the credits. So, there's that.
And how does that feel when you finally see it performed live?
It is overwhelmingly cool. It's mind blowing. I wrote these words and people care about these words, and I don't think I will ever really understand what that means, because it taught me a lot that what you write on the page is extremely important. There were moments where I was like, something falls and makes a noise. You can't write that because nobody's going to create the something that falls. Like they're just going to kind of like gloss over it, right? So you have to be very specific when you're writing and detailed. Now, you don't have to go into like what a character is wearing, like step by step by step, right? People are still gonna do their job. Props are gonna do their jobs, and but it was really cool to see just really specific moments that I had written for these actors, and they wrote they said them with the same weight that I wrote them, and they were crying at times, and they were bringing these words to life in a really interesting way, and they cared about the words. Like, you know, they asked questions, or day of you're like making like small changes, like due to production things happening, and they're like, okay, so if we have to like cut this scene or we have to change this, then what can we do? And there was even a moment where I could not, no matter how many rewrites I was doing this thing, I could not figure out a sentence. Like I wrote something, but I didn't love it. I didn't love that sentence because it was a very important sentence. And I asked the actress, and I was like, what do you think what do you think your character would say here? And ultimately we decided it was actually just like repeating her previous line in a different way. And I was like, yes, like that's it. And I maybe wouldn't write it that way because it feels repetitive because it's the same words. But when she performed it, it was so different, and it's exactly what that scene needed. So I love the collaboration of it, and listening to people talk about what they think this character drinks in the morning or something, especially actors when they bring it to life. It's so incredibly cool.
Does it exceed your expectations then?
Yes. Oh yeah. Every time. Especially when they say it the way I felt it. And that's so hard to do because it's just a line, you know? So when they say it, like you can say, hey, how are you? 5,000 different ways. But when somebody says it the way that I'm like, yes, that is how I intended the character to feel and do things, it's unreal.
Mm-hmm. Now, character development is such a cool thing on both the writers and the actor side as well. Do you ever, when you're making your characters, do you break it down and give them like a bio of their own to kind of help you in the writing assistance and kind of find their quirks? And if so, do you share those with the actors? Do you think that's wise, or just let the writing speak for itself?
So yeah, to answer your first part, I absolutely write bios for them. Different characters get a different amount of a bio. My protagonist, my antagonist, I love writing a villain, by the way. Like, it's really important that you give them, like we talked about flaws earlier, but it doesn't just mean like, oh, this person is a liar. Okay, he's a pathological liar. Like, that can be a flaw, sure, but like, where did that spring from? Like, why does he do that? And then you start really digging into that, and it leads to like, okay, what are the choices he's going to make now, and how does that relate to the story? In terms of like hive mind, I did something for the first time that was really fun, and he's a pathological liar. He's a cult leader, right? So my question was, do cult leaders believe what they say, or are they just doing it for the power? And who knows, right? Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but that was the question I was trying to answer with this character. And so this character has a backstory, and the story he tells everybody isn't true. You know, he tells everybody that his mom died of cancer when he was young, which isn't true. And I had to figure out what is the truth, and not only what's the truth, but also what are all the little ways his life's changed throughout the years until he settled on this one thing that is going to get the sympathy and evoke the emotions that he's trying to get from people. And so that was a lot of fun. I have like 5 just like free writing pages of his life and how he became this person and how he got to this point, because you don't just wake up being a cult leader, right? This is very calculated, and how did he get there and why? And then I also had to decide, what are the rules of the cult? What do they worship? What are their goals? What are they scared of? Why do people come in? And I will probably never share that specifically with the actors. Like, definitely character bio, definitely like specifics. Like I like to share those out with sides if we're doing readings and stuff, even if they're a small character, just to be like, this is what your character believes, you know, even if there's just a few words. But I would never want to impose all of that on an actor because it can rob them of like what they're bringing to the table. But like if that gets picked up into a larger series, then that gets turned into what's called a series Bible, and the writers would use that for future episodes to help make sure it all sounds like it's the same person in the same universe.
To ground it, yeah. That's fun that you said that you like and that you really enjoy writing the villain character, and I think a lot of people like playing the villain character because it's fun. You know, you're this bad person, but things have happened throughout your life to make you that bad person, and giving them that kind of backstory is always really, really interesting and quite a fun thing to, like you said, it might not get on the paper, but in the back of your head or on a side note, it totally plots this guy and gives him that or her that existence in the world, you know. You know, we were talking a couple months back around Halloween about witches in media, and I was hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about that if you're into witches. Obviously, you told me you're dressed like Linda and Elphaba. You know, witches in media is such a cool thing to see it from early on to now becoming this cult icon, if you will, of female empowerment. I was hoping maybe you can talk about the trope of witches and witchcraft.
I mean, I love Wicked, right? I don't have a ton of insight into the tropes of witches specifically, but something that's really important that comes up around Halloween, and it's you hit this right on the head. When we think about like Salem, right, and burning witches at the stake, we really need to backpedal that and remember they were not burning witches, they were burning women.
Right.
Right?
True.
They weren't burning this like idea of something, but they were trying to take away the power of women who thought outside the box. Imagine you're really good at growing crops and you're like, oh my gosh, you're a witch, and they like kill you, and that's insane. And so yes, it's about taking that back and understanding that like a coven or a group of females together can be extremely powerful and uplifting and is not actually dangerous and something we should stop. And I really hope that continues. You know, like right now it's a little bit like, where are we in the world? But I really hope that we can continue to empower women by taking these things that were meant to bring us down and instead using them and uplifting each other. I think Wicked is such a beautiful story. I never got to see it on Broadway, so please don't spoil part 2. Although I've seen the synopsis of what's going on in part 2. But these two women were so very different from each other, and they found unity. And even when their goals changed and they're you know, they diverged their paths, they will still respect each other's choices. And I think that that's really what it means when you're saying, you know, women supporting women. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with every single choice that you ever make, but just because it's not right for me doesn't mean it's not right for you. And when you look at witches, just because it's not right for me doesn't mean it's not right for you, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting to see the power dynamic of the ownership of it afterwards. Of like, yeah, oh, you want to see a witch? I'll give you a witch. It's
Which witch?
That witch.
That witch.
All the witches.
Scary.
Now, is there a script that you have always wanted to write, but you just haven't gotten around to it yet?
All of my scripts. All my scripts. I have so many ideas just running through my head all the time. Oh gosh, I'll get a little bit emotional. And Mom, if you're watching this, I haven't even told her about this. It's going to be her birthday next week. So happy birthday, Mom. But there is such a unique power in a coming of age story. And we see a lot of coming of age stories as teens, right? Literally coming of age. Every once in a while we get something like Take Him to the Greek or something like that that's like more middle-aged. But there is also power in a coming of age for somebody who's a little bit older, say their 40s, their 50s, especially women who are going into a new path. So like my mom, she got married very young. She got divorced, got married again, divorced again, and now she's living a different life. And over the last few years, I've seen a real change in her in such a positive and great way. And I'm realizing, did I know who she was? Or was she a product of the marriage, right? That person that I knew growing up, which I love her, like absolutely. But I'm seeing like a different side of her and a free thinking that I hadn't seen before. And I think that that would be such an amazing story. It's still definitely in the works. I don't have it plotted out, but the idea of looking at somebody who's coming of age after, you know, leaving their husband, not necessarily their husband dies. We see those like a widow, like somebody who's forced into it, but somebody who's like choosing that path, I think would be extremely cool and powerful. I'm also working on one where it's, you know, why am I still single? That question that everybody always asks. And it's a story of a woman who she's diagnosed with cancer, and it's not a cancer story, but she's diagnosed with cancer. And instead of trying to fix the cancer and like do the treatments and stuff, she realizes she's 32. She's one of quadruplets, identical quadruplets, and her 3 sisters are all married. And she's like, why am I the only one who's still single? And she kind of goes on this like road of like her self-worth and looking inwards and being like, what's wrong with me? But ultimately realizing that it's life, right? So we're still working out the exact ending. I know how it ends, but the arch is still not quite there yet.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing that you mentioned of a coming of age, even when you're older too. And those are stories that aren't told very often, and it is important for folks to hear. Were there any movies or any stories that you've heard that, you know, when you read the script or you watched the movie, really changed your perspective?
Specifically with coming of age?
On life of your coming of age, or?
I do have to give a shout out to Ghostlight, which is a feature that was shot here in Chicago. I saw it at the Music Box, and it is a coming of age of a man who falls in love with theater, and he did not realize that he needed this in his life. I don't want to give away too much because even the trailer doesn't give away that much, but it was so interesting to see him find a new love at such a, you know, like, I won't say old age. She's not that old. As I get closer to it, it's like, oh, that's not that old. But just like later in life, that was really, really interesting. And I haven't seen it in a minute, but I do remember it, like Lady Bird, which is a younger coming of age, but also having such a heavy weight and just telling a story in a different way.
Now let's get back to the money, honey.
Okay.
Abby Needs a Friend. That's your new feature coming up. Do you have any other projects that you got coming up that you're for that film to crowdfund for it?
We are looking to do some more fundraising events. We don't have anything on the books yet, but like I said, we are selling T-shirts. So if you're interested in like an anti-MLM, multi-level marketing shirt, that is there. Or we do just have the GoFundMe, which you can just go to Instagram, Abby Needs a Friend, and it's there. We're about 20% at our fundraising right now, which is frankly the hardest amount to hit. They say like once you hit that 20%, people start to see this, it's a real thing. People get more excited about it coming through. So working on that for sure. And
what is your goal?
10,000.
10,000. Get it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, we'll be sure to share that for those of y'all listening. It's going to be down in the description below. We'll put all the links up and everything for you. Try to get you some funding. That sounds terrific.
Thank you.
What other? Sorry, I chugged a coffee before I got in here today. What are some other marketing tactics that you do to fund films and things like that?
This is the first like film I've personally had to fund. So I mean, there's so many potential things you could do. It really just goes back to like, what are you good at and what are people interested in that exchange? If if you're a good writer, you can offer like discounted like coverage notes if that's something you're trying to do. Personally, like I am working on using social media to amplify these projects. And that is still being built, but it's part of the Chicago Film Events community that I'm working on. I'm actually really excited. I haven't really talked about this a ton, but I am learning the process of finding sponsorship for events. And once you can kind of start getting the sponsorship for events, then you can also get the sponsorship for the productions, right? So whether that's like beverages for Crafty and or actual financial sponsorship, I think that there's definitely an avenue out there for that. And I joke with my film friends a lot that why do our Instagram suck so much? Like, frankly, like a lot of them do. Like, a lot of them are great. Like, you know, if you have a good one, like, don't take this too hard. But like, we at the heart are filmmakers, and reels are just mini films. So if we put our efforts towards making better social media, gaining that clout, because like as much as you don't want that to be the reason that you get hired for something, it really is. An article just came out about Stranger Things star, and they told her like how many followers you have does impact whether or not we're going to hire you as actors for films. Wow. Right. Not saying that that's how it should be, but if that's how it is, like, let's use that to our advantage. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because they know more followers, more eyes, and that's where the money is. Mm-hmm. So kind of figuring out that venue, and if anybody out there has like film events that they want to promote, please reach out to me. Working with brands right now. Hopefully, like, I've got a couple of non-alcoholic sponsorships in the works for some upcoming events. So don't have anything signed on dotted line, so I can't speak too much to it, but it's definitely rolling. Very excited for it. And then once you start really like getting the ball rolling, like Abby Needs a Friend, some makeup MLM. Cool. If there are any makeup sponsors out there that like want to be highlighted, sure, the cult is a bad thing, but like we said, being bad is edgy and cool. Right? If the makeup looks good, people are gonna wonder, what is that eyeliner, like, especially the script, it's specifically neon colors. They're gonna wonder, like, where did that come from? They're gonna look it up, because that is the culture that we live in right now. You watch a reel and people are, where did she get that jacket? How did she do her hair? Like, they want to know these questions. Let's put it into film and figure out how to get the brands partnered with us, even at the indie level and not just the large studio level.
How hard is that to get product placement in an indie film?
How hard is it to find the sponsor?
Mm-hmm. To sponsor it, to product placement. Hey, we're going to use this thing, give you a shout out at the end in the credits. How hard is that to get it tangibly?
I don't think it's hard. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about before with your money mindset. How willing are you to go up to a business and ask them for that? You know, especially locations is really hard, you know, so you want to go up to a business and be like, hi, I really need a coffee shop. Are you willing to shut down for Sunday morning and we can film here? It's really about having the ingenuity to just find people who align with your goals. And once you find that then it's much easier. But it is the initial reaching out, the research. You can't just ask every single business. I mean, you can, but it's a lot easier if you're more specific and working with brands and companies who want to support the goal of your film. So if we're working with predominantly female cast, it would make sense to align with a female like business, right? So finding those types of things, and once you find that, it will be much easier.
Yeah, you surround yourself with the right people. Absolutely. You know, you've come such a long way so far. Where would you like to see yourself 5 to 10 years down the road?
Gosh, I barely can remember what I want to do 5 minutes from now. Ultimately, I would love to be a showrunner. Like, that would be the ultimate goal. And for those who don't know what that is, it is the person who works on a, like, specifically television set, and they help the continuity and the structure of the story, not just for that episode, but for the season, for the multiple seasons. They're the head of the writer's room who helps break down stories and create the plots for the characters, the twists, the turns, all the things that make us gasp and love it. They sit with the writers and brainstorm, and they help structure all of that. And they keep the tone of the story consistent. Community, if you've seen it, had a new showrunner. I think it was season 3, and it's really evident that somebody else is kind of like steering that boat. Not that it's better or worse, although some people did not like it after that. But it is very evident when that changes because they have such an impact on the show as a whole. Can't wait to look back 10 years from now and be like, hey, we did it.
Mama, we made it. Mama, we made it. Well, very cool. Now, what was the turning point in your life, do you think, that made you think, I want to get into film, I want to get into writing, I want to be a part of this world? Was it gradually, or was there one moment that really snapped it for you?
Yeah, I've been a writer my whole life. I went to Nashville for a semester and I wrote songs there. Like I said, I went down to Austin. I tried to be a stand-up comedian. And once I realized that people were telling funny jokes, but I could write them better, I was like, if you change these words, I think it would really land better. That's when it really became evident that I was like, I have to write. So I was doing sketches and I moved to Chicago and was studying at Second City, all of the things, and then pandemic, right? Just like so many of us. And I continued to try to do sketches throughout the pandemic with my sketch team back in Austin. And I would send them lines, they would read into a camera, and then I tried to edit it to something that would go on YouTube. But it was really, really difficult because there were sound issues, eyeline issues, all of these things that actors usually have a team helping them with. They were now having to do all of it. And it just really wasn't, it didn't make any sense. And it wasn't doing what I needed it to do. So in 2020, I decided I'm going to write a feature. I did. I was like, all right, how does one write a feature? Because I had never written one before. And I read the books every day after work through the job that was just absolutely beyond stressful during the pandemic. And after about 3 months, I had 120 pages of a feature. And I was like, I did it. Like, it was possible. It was hard, but I did it. You will never read that feature. I can promise you right now. I sent that to my sketch group. They gave me great feedback. I'm looking back on it now and I'm like, this is problematic on so many levels, not just bad writing. And so, but just to know that I did it, and I was like, if I did it once, I can do it again. And there was something really magical about screenwriting where it would kind of combines the idea of sketch, because every scene is basically a little sketch, and like a novel, which I also was drawn to, because you're writing the slug lines, you're writing the action lines, you're creating a universe and a world. And there was just something so great about the in-between of that I said, I have to do more of this. And so that's when I wrote Genius High and started writing a bunch of other shorts. And eventually in 2021, I just quit my corporate job and went to filmmaking full time. Was really lucky. My first gig, super dope. The film is not out yet, but I mean, hopefully soon. Got to work with some really great celebrities, including Sean Astin. I know, right? This like little indie film. I don't know how I got so lucky, but beyond that, I also made really great connections with Jordan Graves, who's actually line producing Abby Needs a Friend, and getting to go there every day to this set, and just good things happened every day, bad things happened every day. It was a whirlwind, and learning what it means to be on set and how to use a walkie and how to make sure people have water, but you're not like overwhelming them with the water. You know, it's these like fine things that you can only do once you're on set, actually learning everything. And I just really fell in love with it and haven't really looked back since. Pick up odd jobs here and there, but primarily working through screenwriting and on set as my primary income.
And you also worked on Fort Knox. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Or not Fort Knox, Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks.
My apologies.
No, you're good. Yes, I did. Okay, so Hard Knocks was my first HBO credit. It's over here at the Bears over the summer. That was such an incredible experience. I watched high school football, but beyond that, I never really like understood football. And it was cool to like kind of live in that universe for a while and see what it is they do. What does practice look like? Like, what is it that they're doing? And football is actually very intense because it's like a game of chess. And I didn't realize that. I just kind of thought, oh, it's like, how strong are you? How far can you throw the football? But it really is a game of chess, and practicing specific scenarios over and over again until they're second nature. So that way, no matter what scenario the game throws at you, you're able to overcome it. That was really dope. I was also extremely surprised and happy with the crew there, because oh, I didn't know. Like walking in, is it going to be a bunch of sports bros? Like, these are people who they do this for a living. Like that's their thing. But everybody was beyond welcoming. Like one of the best sets that I've ever worked on. And we had, we had a female director. We had multiple directors, but one of them was female. And that was really cool to see. And there was never any question about it. Like she just was, and she's amazing. So yeah, it was a different experience because it's a docuseries, so it's live. We would watch the shows together every week, and sometimes I'd say, oh, I didn't even know that happened because I wasn't in the room when it happened. And so I got to see things from a different view. And then it was really amazing when a really cool shot would come up or a heightened moment of the story. And not only was that the story was cool, but I was like, I know who was behind the camera. I know who was doing the sound. And that was a special level just to be able to turn and be like, dude, that was a really great shot you did. Like that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, it's really surreal when you know the camera operators, you know the actors on set, even the Bears players themselves. Be like, I was there, I was at that corner. There's my Starbucks cup. Was there any weird moments that you might have had while working with the Bears?
I had a conversation with one of the players at lunch because I talk about being from Nebraska all the time. It's my personality. I can't help it. And I was talking to one of the cooks because they have like a little community garden. I said, oh, it's been really fun watching the corn grow. It makes me feel like I'm at home. And one of the players was like, oh, you're from Nebraska? I played them in state. And I was like, cool. Like not Nebraska, like Kearney, right? So it's not the Cornhuskers. It's a different thing. And I said, yeah, they weren't very good. And they weren't. And he's like, yeah, no, we beat them really bad. And at that point, you're like, okay, do we keep this conversation going or is this the end? And, that was kind of a fun, thing to try to straddle because obviously they're there to work. You're there to work. It's about professional relationships.
Yeah, rewind. Your team name was the Carnies? No. Like the carnival operators?
No, it's the name of the city.
Oh, okay. That explains it. Okay.
We were the Lopers, which isn't much better.
Lopers?
The antelopes.
Okay. Is that where carnies come from?
Sure. It's funny because I actually worked at carnivals and fairs with my uncle. So I am technically a carny. I sell funnel cakes and corn dogs and pizza, and I've traveled to doing that. So I am a carny at heart and an alumni.
Oh. An alumni carny. You don't see those every day.
No.
You still have all your teeth.
Yes. At least the ones you can see.
Oh, man. If you were to go back in time and meet yourself at a younger age, what age would you go to and what would you tell yourself?
Wow.
As a young carny.
Right. No, the first thing that comes to my mind would be to say, don't go join that cult. But, they always say the choices you make lead you to who you are today, and I'm pretty proud of who I am today. However, I would go back and teach myself how to be just a little more stylish a little earlier. I've always had my own sense of style, but it didn't always work for me. It was more just yes, this is what I like. And I think that teaching that, and then also just the confidence and saying, hey, I felt very lonely in high school, and I don't think that that's an uncommon experience, but I've always been a pretty nice person. I feel like I invited people to stuff, but I wasn't necessarily getting invited, which is why now I'm inviting everybody to everything all the time. But I would definitely go back and tell myself, you are going to find people who you connect with, who understand you and encourage you, and those times that you're feeling unworthy or really lonely, they're so much fewer than the times that you're gonna feel loved, and even though they feel heavy in the moment, it will pass. And I think just having that assurance that anytime you have a doubt now, knowing that in the future it changes is always really nice.
You're gonna get out of this carny town and you're gonna find your tribe, kid.
Yes, absolutely.
You do have a cool style. What would you define your aesthetic?
I looked this up once because I was like gonna redecorate my place. I am a, what is it? Maximalist, eclectic, I think is what it, once I started going down the Pinterest rabbit board. So the opposite of minimalist, but it's curated, right? It's intentional. It's not just everything everywhere. And so I try to be very specific now with what I do, even if I like this. Like I like bright things, but it's done with intention.
You got a cool getup right now. Let's see that ring. You can hold that up to the camera.
The like it's like a cross.
Damn, you can poke an eye out with that thing.
Gets caught in your hair too if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
The what you were saying, your aesthetic, that sounds just like a 90s kid who just grew up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you like the vibrant, the neons, the textures. Like when I saw Barbie the movie,
Yeah.
I was like, these color patterns just like it just brings you back to that stage in life, you know? Which is a weird thing that I was reading the other day, that you know how like there were like 1950s diners back in the day, like, and they got really popular in the 80s. They were saying that 50s diners in the 80s is the same time length from like now to the 90s. So if you had like a 90s theme restaurant or whatever, that was that same kind of time gap. Isn't that weird to think about?
Is that what 90s aesthetics are coming back with all the young kids?
Dude, I'd like to see it come back with all the young kids. The 90s was fucking awesome. Dude, it was so cool.
I wonder what happens if you give them like Tamagotchis or something.
Dude, their heads would explode.
They'll be like, this is way too little technology for what we're used to.
Like, you stared at this fucking thing? Your knuckles dragging on the ground? What the fuck? No, it's really crazy to see, but I don't know. I love the 90s. Are you a 90s baby?
Yes.
What year
Yes,
were
I
you born,
am.
if you don't mind me asking?
1990.
1990.
Right on the dot. But yeah, you're right, Jay. Like that Y2K aesthetic is back hard. I don't think it's leaving quite yet, but I am seeing now on TikTok things where girls are like, guys, look at this really cool thing I found. And I'm like, oh my God, we did that in high school. Am I my mother? Like, when did this happen? It's definitely interesting to see that. Tamagotchis, I think there's an app for that now.
Yeah.
Is there really?
Probably.
Probably. I know they got like Game Boy like simulators and stuff where you download them on your phone and you get to play like friggin' Game Boy Color like games and stuff.
Nice. Huh.
And then Kendrick Lamar wearing bell bottoms at the
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Oh, man.
Super 90s, dude.
Do you remember walking through like a rainy storm and the back of your heels would just get saturated all the way up to the back of your knee?
That's terrible.
Bell bottoms.
Sometimes things are meant to be left in the past, but we'll see. We'll see what comes back. Like, let's never bring back low-rise jeans, though. Okay, like, or what was it? Cocaine chic. We can leave that in the past too. Like, that's fine.
Cocaine chic. With your McDonald's spoons.
For us young kids, what's cocaine chic?
Oh, it is basically when you were a celebrity who looked like you were on cocaine because you had, no body fat, and just like really thick under like eyeliner. It looked like you partied all night, but it took hours to get to that point.
Oh, Ozempic.
Ozempic.
We're there. We're back.
There you go.
It's like we never left the 90s. Isn't this great?
Yes. I wonder which is more expensive. Ozempic or
Probably Ozempic.
cocaine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't touch the cocaine these days. It might be your last party. Sheesh. Oh, man. Well, I think we're just about that time. I know you got a meetup tonight that you got to get to, so we'll wrap it up here. Is there any last messages you want to send out to the world before we close out the show?
Yeah. If anybody is looking to network or trying to find like that space and you're feeling intimidated, there's a couple of really great opportunities coming up. There is the Next Generation, which is a film block happening Friday and Saturday this weekend, where you can go watch short films that have been curated, and the days are 2 different days. So I definitely recommend going for both. There is a discount code, shyfilmevents.com, but if you hit up that Instagram, all that information is there. And then if you're looking to like network with people in a cool space, Mainstage is having their open house, which is the 28th. It's whatever that Friday is. I believe it's the 28th. And it's free, and it's like a really cool time to meet people, but you're also like at main stage, which is a studio and gear rental house, so you can kind of like learn different things. And like if you're new, please come. Like definitely please come. Everybody's super welcoming. If you're not new and you just never been or you want to come say hi, also come.
All right. Well, Jennie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And, you know, it's so cool that, you know, I asked you the question earlier, you know, what would you like to see done differently in the film scene? And you're doing it. You're bridging those gaps, girl. And I just want you to know that, you know, you have a whole bunch of people back there supporting you and loving you through it. And I've talked to so many people about you too, and they all have nothing but great things to say. And you're really making some big waves here in the indie scene. And we encourage you to keep on keeping on. And one day it's going to happen. You know, you're going to get the big break, but you're enjoying the process now, right?
Thank you so much. And I mean, same to you both, because doing this kind of thing is very challenging, and seeing you both be very consistent with it and bring on some great guests and kind of talk to people of different walks of life is really interesting. So thank you so much for having me on here. I couldn't have asked for a better way to spend my Wednesday.
Oh, we appreciate it, Jennie. Thank you. Thanks again for joining us. Well, we're gonna send it out to you guys here. If you're interested in hearing more about Jennie McMurtry, check out on Facebook. She is Jennie from NE. On YouTube, she is Jennie from Nebraska. And she's on Instagram and TikTok. And we're going to have all of her descriptions down in the description below. So be sure to check her out, give her a follow, and reach out to her if you have any questions. If you're a writer yourself and you want to get into the scene, if you're an indie filmmaker and you want to get into the pot and stir it up a little bit, I would definitely hit her up. She's a wonderful person and a great person to talk to and bounce ideas off of. Jennie, thank you again so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, before we head on out, Jay, at the end of every show, we always send it out with a challenge for the folks listening. Do you got a challenge for everyone?
This week, my challenge for the entire universe is to
the universe, because we do have aliens.
Get on Ozempic. I'm just kidding.
Ozempic, no.
Just try something you've never tried before and say one nice thing to one person ever. Anyone. Say one nice thing to one person.
Yeah. That's because that's a hard one too. A lot of people don't feel comfortable getting out of their shell like that. People like it. Spread positivity. Always, right?
Yeah.
Oh, also, while we got you here, me and Jay are also hosting beer pong over at DraftKings Chicago tomorrow. It's every Thursday night. It starts at 8 o'clock. I'd suggest get there a little early, but it's completely free to play beer pong, and winners walk away with some gift cards for DraftKings. You also win some cool shiny medals.
Cool little shiny medals.
It's a lot of fun. And yeah, if you guys want to come join us, we're there every Thursday starting at 8 o'clock. But again, get there a little earlier. Come up with a fun team name too. And let's sink them and drink them and cup some balls and sink some cups and
yeah,
do that beer pong.
Cup some balls.
Well, thank you guys for joining us here at Hawk Wins. Again, if you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe down below. Check out some of our other episodes. And thank you guys for joining us. My name is Jack Dwyer.
And I'm Jay Smooth.
You guys have a great night.